My cousin moved in after her breakup, but started telling my 8-year-old son he was spoiled and locked him in his room for hours. So I did this to her stuff, then kicked her out of my house. So I, female, 29, feel like I'm losing my mind over this situation with my cousin. And I honestly don't know if I'm being a paranoid helicopter parent or if my gut instincts are actually right for once. Am I the idiot for refusing to leave them alone together even for an hour? Okay, so background, I inherited my grandmother's house when I was 24. I'm the oldest grandkid, and apparently everyone else was too unstable, according to my grandmother's exact words in the will. This caused some family problems because, honestly, yeah, it's a really nice house and I definitely didn't expect it. My aunt, cousin's mom, made some comments at the funeral about how things weren't fair, but whatever. I was grieving and didn't want to deal with family bullshit. I went through a really nasty divorce 3 years ago, and it's just been me and my son since then. I'm probably overprotective because of everything that happened. My ex was not great with boundaries, let's just say that. But I've worked really hard to make our home feel safe and stable for both of us. So anyway, last week my cousin Emma, let's call her that, calls me while I'm making dinner, absolutely sobbing. She says her boyfriend kicked her out, and she's sitting in her car outside my workplace, which was weird because how did she know I'd still be there? But whatever. She's crying about how I've always been the only one in the family who actually helps people. And honestly, that hit me right in the guilt complex because yeah, I do tend to be the one who fixes everyone's problems. I immediately told her she could stay on my couch as long as she needed. I mean, what else was I gonna say? She showed up within an hour with multiple expensive-looking suitcases. When I mentioned it, seemed like a lot of stuff she said she'd been planning to leave him for weeks, but only got the courage today. She grabbed everything while he was at his night job because she was scared he'd throw her stuff out. The first week was actually really nice. Emma was super helpful around the house, played with my son, cooked dinner a couple times. I started thinking maybe this was good for all of us, you know? My son doesn't have much family around, and Emma seemed to genuinely enjoy spending time with him. But then last Tuesday, I had to run out real quick to pick up my son's prescription before the pharmacy closed. Emma offered to watch him and suggested they could make cookies together. I was only gone maybe 20 minutes, but when I came back, I found my son in his room with tear stains on his face, arranging his toy cars in these perfect little rows, which is like his stress response thing. Emma was aggressively scrubbing the kitchen counter, and when I asked what happened, she said my son was deliberately disrespectful by asking for a snack after she'd already said no 3 times. She said she had to teach him that adults make the rules, and he can't just push boundaries whenever he wants something. But when I gently asked my son about it later, he said he'd only asked once for graham crackers from the pantry, and Emma had yelled that he was being spoiled and demanding like rich kids. The way he said it, he was so quiet and careful. That's not how my kid normally talks. Since then, he's been asking permission for everything when Emma's around. Is it okay if I get water? Can I use the bathroom? Am I allowed to play with my toys? And these are things he's never had to ask permission for. This is his house. Yesterday, Emma offered to take him to the park while I went grocery shopping, and I just couldn't. I made up some excuse about wanting family bonding time and insisted we all go together. Emma got this look on her face and started making these pointed comments about helicopter parenting. She said I was creating anxiety issues by not letting him learn independence, and that my divorce trauma might be making me overprotective about normal childhood discipline. And honestly, that hit me where it hurts because I do worry about being overprotective. What if I'm seeing problems that aren't there? What if I'm the one creating issues for my son by not trusting other adults to set boundaries? But also, something just feels off. The way my son's whole personality changes when Emma's around. How he started doing that obsessive toy arranging thing again. The fact that he had tears on his face but didn't want to talk about what happened. I've been making excuses ever since Tuesday to not leave them alone together, and I can tell Emma's getting annoyed. She keeps making these little comments about how I need to let go and stop treating him like he's made of glass. Last night she said something about how maybe I should consider therapy to deal with my trust issues. I mean, maybe she's right. Maybe I am being crazy and paranoid. But every time I think about leaving them alone, I get this sick feeling in my stomach. Is that my intuition or is that trauma brain? I honestly can't tell anymore. I just want to keep my son safe, but I also don't want to be the psycho relative who accuses family members of, what, being too strict, having different parenting styles. I don't even know what I'm worried about exactly, which makes me think maybe Emma's right and I do need therapy. Am I the idiot for not trusting my cousin alone with my son, even though she hasn't actually done anything that bad? Information to add: since people are asking about the inheritance thing, my grandmother specifically chose me because I was the most stable with a good head on my shoulders. The house is worth quite a bit, and yeah, it did cause family problems. My aunt made comments about how her kids needed help more than I did. But honestly, I was 24 and barely scraping by at the time, so it's not like I was rolling in money. The will was very clear and there were no legal issues, just hurt feelings. To everyone saying I should trust my gut, thank you. I've been second-guessing myself so much because Emma keeps saying I'm being overprotective. But you're right that kids don't usually change the way they act for no reason. The permission-asking thing especially bothers me because he's never done that before, not even with his teachers or other family members. For those asking about my son's dad, he's not in the picture by choice. The divorce was messy and there were some boundary issues. Nothing physical, just controlling stuff and emotional stuff. I've worked really hard to make sure my son feels safe expressing himself and making age-appropriate choices. So seeing him suddenly become this quiet, permission-asking kid around Emma is setting off all my alarm bells. Now for the first update. You guys were right, and now I'm feeling like an idiot for not trusting my gut sooner. So after my last post, I was still going back and forth on whether I was being paranoid about Emma, my cousin, being weird around my son. That was Sunday when she offered to babysit, and I refused. I mean, like half of you were telling me to trust my instincts, and the other half were saying I might be projecting trauma onto normal stuff with kids. Honestly, I was leaning toward the maybe I'm the problem side, because Emma kept making these comments about my helicopter parenting and how I needed therapy for trust issues. I'd been trying to keep my distance and avoid conflicts like some of you suggested. But then this week, some really weird shit started happening that I can't explain away, and I started noticing other things that made me realize the son situation might just be part of something bigger. I came home from work on Tuesday and immediately noticed our trash can was like overflowing, which is weird because I'd just taken it out that morning. When I looked closer, I found multiple containers from this Thai place downtown that's honestly really expensive, like $35 to $40 for a single order. I know because I looked it up after seeing the containers, thinking maybe Emma had gotten delivery as a treat or something. But then I went upstairs to put away laundry and saw these Target bags in Emma's room. Not like a couple items. I'm talking multiple bags with new clothes, expensive shampoo and conditioner, makeup stuff, easily $100 worth of stuff. And I'm looking at this thinking, wait, didn't she say she was barely scraping by and living off emergency savings? I mean, I know it's not really my business how she spends her money, but like, if someone's staying on my couch because they're financially desperate, seeing them order $40 Thai food and buy a bunch of new clothes is gonna raise some questions, you know? So that night at dinner, I tried to bring it up casually. I asked how her job search was going and suggested maybe cutting back on some expenses might help stretch her savings. Emma's whole face just changed. She went off about how I was monitoring her like a controlling parent and that I was being exactly like her ex, who used to track her spending and question every purchase. She said she couldn't believe I was judging her food choices after everything she'd been through. I tried to backtrack and explain that I wasn't trying to control anything. I was just trying to be supportive about job hunting. But she stormed off to her room and like an hour later, I heard her ordering more takeout. She came out with Chipotle this time and ate it while saying she needed comfort food to deal with stress. The whole thing was weird. Like, who responds to a gentle suggestion about budgeting by ordering more expensive food? And the way she compared me to her controlling ex made me feel guilty for even asking. But I started second-guessing myself again because maybe I was being controlling. I don't know. The whole interaction left me confused. Then yesterday, I had my weekly call with my mom. We usually chat every Sunday. I ended up venting about feeling like Emma was taking advantage financially, and my mom got this tone in her voice. She told me she'd run into Emma's sister at Kroger earlier this week. Apparently, Emma's sister, let's call her Kate, was confused about why Emma moved out of her boyfriend's place because they'd literally been apartment hunting together like 2 weeks before this supposed emergency breakup happened. And get this, during their apartment hunting, Emma had shown Kate her bank accounts to prove she could afford rent, and Kate saw she had over $4,000 spread across multiple accounts. I literally hung up the phone and immediately confronted Emma. At first, she said Kate was lying and being dramatic, which, why would Kate lie about something so specific? Then when I pressed her, she admitted to having some savings but said it was complicated and I wouldn't understand. When I asked why she lied about being broke, she got pissed and started yelling about how family members need to stop gossiping about her personal business and how I was just like everyone else in this family who can't mind their own fucking business. But she's the one who told me she was desperate and had nowhere else to go. I never asked about her finances until she made it my business by moving into my house. I was so confused and angry that I called my mom back, and she ended up calling Kate directly to get the full story. What Kate told her is honestly confusing me even more. Apparently, Emma has been calling different family members for months, asking weird questions about what happened to Grandma's jewelry and important papers, and who has access to Grandma's house. Kate said during their apartment hunting trip, Emma had asked specifically about where documents might be stored in my house and whether I kept original family stuff from when Grandma lived there. And here's the part that's really messing with me. Kate said Emma had already given her landlord 30-day notice to vacate her apartment on July 15th. The supposed sudden breakup emergency didn't happen until August 10th. So she'd already decided to move out for almost a month before any emergency happened. I confronted Emma about this, and she first denied it, then said she'd given notice because she was going to break up with him anyway and just hadn't gotten around to it yet. When I pointed out that didn't explain why she needed emergency housing if she'd already decided this for weeks, she said I was twisting everything and being just like Mom's side of the family who always think the worst of people. And honestly, that comment about Mom's side of the family stuck with me, because my mom's side is the side that includes my grandmother who left me the house that Emma's been asking weird questions about for months apparently. I keep trying to piece this together and nothing makes sense. If she wasn't actually broke, why lie about it? If she'd already decided to move out for weeks, why make it sound like an emergency? And why has she been asking family members about grandmother's belongings and documents? The more I think about it, the more I'm realizing that literally nothing Emma told me about her situation adds up. But I still don't understand what she's actually doing here, or why she needed to be in my house specifically. My son's still acting weird around her, still asking permission for everything, still doing the obsessive toy arranging when she's been around him, and now I'm wondering if the strict stuff with him is connected to whatever else is going on. I feel like such an idiot for not trusting my gut sooner, but also, who lies about being desperate to their family. What kind of person does that? I don't know what to do next. Part of me wants to just tell her to leave, but I don't have proof she's doing anything actually wrong beyond lying about money. And what if I'm wrong about all this? What if there's some explanation I'm missing? Has anyone else dealt with family members who turned out to be lying about major stuff like this? How do you even confront someone when you don't know what they're really after? Edit. Since so many are asking about the inheritance thing, I've been thinking about this connection too. My grandmother left me the house specifically because I was the most stable with a good head on my shoulders, her exact words in the will. It's worth quite a bit and definitely caused problems with my aunt, Emma's mom, who made comments about how her kids needed help more than I did. The will was ironclad though, and there were never any legal challenges, just hurt feelings. To those asking if Emma's mom put her up to this, honestly, that's exactly what I'm wondering now. My aunt has always been bitter about the inheritance, and my mom mentioned she's been stirring up old family shit recently, though everyone's been trying to keep me out of whatever she's been starting. For everyone saying to check if anything's missing from the house, I'm honestly scared to look too closely because what if I find something? What do I even do if she's been going through my stuff or taking things? She's family and she's been living here for weeks. I don't even know where to start or what I should be looking for. Now for the second update. Welcome back, everyone. And honestly, I wish I had better news, but things have gotten so much worse since my last post. So after all your comments about how the money stuff didn't add up, I was still trying to figure out what to do about Emma, my cousin. Part of me wanted to just kick her out after catching her in all those lies, but I kept second-guessing myself because she's family, and what if there was some explanation I was missing, you know? But then yesterday morning, my boyfriend Jake mentioned something that made me realize how bad this really was. We were having coffee, and Jake told me that Emma had asked him weird questions yesterday when I was at work. She cornered him in the kitchen and asked about where we keep old family photos and documents from when my grandma lived here, and whether any of the paperwork from the inheritance was still in the house. Jake said she kept pushing about whether we had a home safe or filing cabinet with important family stuff. He told her he didn't know about any of that, since it's my house and my family's things, but Emma kept asking if he'd ever seen me going through old boxes or papers. When he told me this, I felt sick. All the weird stuff started making sense. I immediately called in sick to work, told them I had a stomach bug, which honestly wasn't totally a lie because I felt like I was gonna throw up. I decided I needed to keep an eye on what Emma was actually doing while I wasn't home. Around 10 a.m., I heard footsteps in the basement. I crept down there as quietly as I could and found Emma crouched in front of our storage boxes with her phone flashlight on, frantically taking pictures of documents with her phone. She had papers spread all over the floor and was going through everything. Old tax returns, insurance papers, stuff from when my grandmother lived here. When she saw me, she literally jumped and tried to shove papers back in the boxes. She started saying she was looking for old family recipes. Grandma mentioned, but I could see her phone screen was still open to the camera, and there were like dozens of photos of legal documents and property papers. I was so angry, I could barely speak. I asked her what she was really doing, and she kept insisting it was about recipes until I grabbed her phone. I know that was probably wrong, but I was so mad, and saw all the pictures she'd taken. Finally, she just broke down, crying, and admitted her mom had been pressuring her to find something Mom thinks might be down there. She said my aunt has been convinced for months that grandmother promised her some jewelry and money that never showed up in the will. I called my mom immediately, right there from the basement, while Emma sat crying on a storage box. My mom sighed in this tired way and said my aunt has been causing problems for months, claiming grandmother verbally promised her my great-grandmother's wedding ring and $10,000 that the family lawyers probably hid somewhere. My mom said the aunt has been telling people that house should be partially mine and that I somehow got more than I was supposed to. But here's the thing, there was never any verbal promise. My grandmother was incredibly specific about her will because she'd seen too many families torn apart by inheritance problems. Everything she wanted to give was clearly documented and witnessed. When I confronted Emma about this, she completely fell apart. She admitted through tears that her mom had threatened to cut off all contact and financial support unless she found proof of this supposed promise. And then she said something that made me feel sick. Every time out she'd given my son, every time she'd made him go to his room for hours, she'd been using that time to search different parts of the house without being interrupted. She said she felt terrible, but her mom had made it sound like I stole what was rightfully ours, and that finding proof was the only way to make things fair for the family. I honestly didn't know what to say. Like, how do you even process that someone has been using your child just to search your house for documents that don't exist? I told Emma she needed to leave, but she begged me to let her stay until she could figure things out. She promised she was done searching and would tell her mom she couldn't find anything. Against my better judgment, and I know you guys are going to roast me for this, I said she could stay through the weekend while she made other arrangements. I should have kicked her out immediately. 3 days later, I came home from a longer grocery shopping trip, and the house was weird quiet. Usually my son runs to greet me when I get home, but there was nothing. I found my son's bedroom door locked from the outside with a chair wedged under the handle. When I got the door open, my son had been crying and told me Emma had locked him in there over 4 hours ago. He said she told him he was acting like he owned the place and needed hours to think about how good he has it in other people's houses. 4 hours. A 8-year-old locked in his room for 4 hours for existing in his own house. After getting my son out of his room and making sure he was okay, I noticed Emma had left her phone on the kitchen counter. When I looked through it, yes, I snooped, and no, I don't care if that was wrong. I found the text thread with my aunt that made everything clear. Emma had sent photos of more documents, and my aunt had responded that she found some papers, but nothing about money yet. Keep looking. There was another message from my aunt that said, "Make sure the boy stays out of the way. We can't have him telling his mom you're going through things." I was shaking with anger, but instead of confronting Emma directly, I called my aunt and recorded the conversation. Thank God for iPhone voice memos. My aunt actually admitted everything. She defended Emma's actions and said someone needs to teach that boy some humility and that my son was spoiled from living in that big house that should have been shared with the family. She said Emma was just trying to find what grandmother really wanted, and that I was selfish for hoarding family history. The recording is literally 12 minutes of my aunt admitting that she sent Emma to search my house and that they'd been using my son as a pawn to keep him distracted. I immediately posted the recording to our family group chat with the message that everyone needs to hear what Aunt's name has been making Emma do to my 8-year-old. The response was immediate and explosive. My uncle called my aunt names. My cousin Rachel said she was disgusted and embarrassed to be related to someone who would use a child like that. My mom called my aunt directly, and I could hear her screaming through the phone from upstairs. Emma came up from the basement. Apparently she'd been down there taking more photos and saw the family chat blowing up with angry messages about what she and her mom had done. She started packing within 30 minutes as family members kept texting increasingly angry responses. My aunt tried calling me 6 times, but I didn't answer. She sent texts saying I was destroying the family over a misunderstanding and that I was vindictive and cruel for humiliating Emma publicly. But they humiliated themselves. I just made sure everyone knew what they'd actually been doing. Emma left the morning after I posted the recording to the family group chat, and the last thing she said was that her mom was just trying to get what was fair, and that maybe someday I'd understand that not everything is about money. Which is honestly rich coming from someone who spent weeks manipulating a child so she could photograph inheritance documents that don't exist. I'm still processing all of this. How do you wrap your head around family members who are willing to mess with your kid over money that was never promised to them? And the fact that Emma was willing to lock my son in his room for hours just so she could keep searching. I keep thinking about how scared he must have been. The family group chat is still going crazy. Apparently, other relatives have started coming forward with stories about my aunt asking them weird questions about the inheritance and what I really got from grandmother. Some of my cousins are saying she's been spreading rumors for months about how I'm hiding family jewelry and keeping secrets about what grandmother really wanted. I feel like such an idiot for not seeing this coming sooner. All the signs were there. The lies about money, the questions about documents, the way she was treating my son. But I kept giving her the benefit of the doubt because she's family. My son seems okay now that Emma's gone. He's back to his normal personality and stopped asking permission for everything. But I'm probably going to get him some counseling just to make sure he processes this okay. No kid should have to deal with adults manipulating them for money shit they don't understand. I still can't believe my aunt was willing to destroy relationships and hurt a child over money that never existed. What kind of person does that? Has anyone else dealt with family members who became completely crazy about inheritance stuff? I feel like I'm living in some weird soap opera where people I've known my whole life turned into completely different people over money.